and I'm going to start sharing my presentation. Right, just to confirm, you can see that on the screen.
Yeah, boss.
Great. I'm going to just admit a couple of people and then we are going to kick off. Right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you, or good afternoon, I should say. Welcome to another Free Friday Lunch webinar that we're presenting typically on the last Friday of the month, albeit the second last Friday today. On the important topic of don't let our future or our past be the thief of our present. For those of you who are not that familiar with me, I head up the Southern African Leadership Development and Training Institute. Those are my details. And then at the end of last year, we acquired a small company that where we're going to start next month or the month after that to do masterclasses from a soft skills solutions point of view as well. There's a couple of housekeeping matters. Thank you for joining me. Please mute if you don't mind, unless you've got a question that you want to ask right at the end. I'll aim for 25 minutes of presentation, more or less, and then allow for 5-minute Q&A at the end. Please use the chat box as last resort. I'm just scared that I'm going to miss those comments. And then, like I said, the session is recorded. If you would like a copy of the session, please mail me, although it will be available within the next week on our website as a vlog. Yeah, and please mail me your future topics. I always ask if you find challenges around self-leadership or leadership topics in general, please send those through to me and I'll gladly add them to our list of topics that we present to you on a monthly basis. So I always start with this slide because I think it's so important that we invite ourselves actually to reflect, to gauge ourselves and how do we show up against the content that I'm sharing with you, and to hold up the proverbial mirror and ask myself, how am I doing? And can I improve? And what can I do to improve? And hopefully, as far as the last comment is concerned, I can assist you in giving you some tools, techniques, and methods that will allow you to master the topic of today's session a little bit more. I'm going to quickly view. There's a couple of people that I'll admit, breaking my own rules of allowing them 5 minutes after the event. There we go. Right, so Ali McGraw said, living the present and finding what's good about it is how I want to be alive. And I'm not sure about you, but that's certainly the way I would like to be alive as well.
The most awesome force in the universe, the most powerful device ever created, is now in the hands of one man.
Cool. You wanted a universal remote. That remote controls your universe.
For me to do those documents, it's gonna take me months.
You better get started.
Wow, I got a big headache.
You do? So I can re-experience any part of my life I want to.
I heard a song playing on the radio this morning.
We have a song?
The song that was playing during our first kiss.
What the hell was that song?
Do you have
Oh my God. Get it. That's my boy. Linger was playing during our first juicy kiss. You look beautiful in that pink sweater.
Honey, you remember what I was wearing?
I love you.
I love you too, honey.
Yeah. Skipping showers, skipping getting dressed. And looking sexy. I like that.
Have you been drinking, Daddy?
The remote.
Making up.
Click it.
Is that my parents?
They're making you. Get me out of here!
Takes control.
This thing's broken. It's fast forwarded on its own. What else did I miss?
Every day.
Adam Sandler.
You look a little pale there, pal. Let me fix that. Don't get the Hulk angry. You won't like him when he's angry.
Fleck.
Plants catch.
Yeah, but your kid stinks.
All
So may you and I never ever be guilty like Michael Newman did in the movie Click, in fast forwarding all the unpleasant or menial moments in his life. So the question is, are you living in the present? Are you a pilgrim or are you a tourist? I once got confronted with this question listening to a sermon. And the contrast is that when you are a tourist, you appreciate life, you live in the present, you even walk barefoot, feeling the soil underneath your feet, feeling the wind on your skin and maybe the raindrops from above, seeing the butterflies and the crickets in the grass, as opposed to being a tourist that wants to just appreciate or enjoy or experience the highlights of life. Flying to designations, maybe taking a taxi as opposed to taking a walk. I'm a motorcyclist rather, and we have an expression that says at get, all the gear, all the time. When I was a youngster at school growing up, I used to ride my bike without a helmet, flip-flops, maybe not even shoes, t-shirt, PT shorts. But nowadays, when I'm older, at 53, my bones are getting a little bit more brittle. And I believe in all the gear all the time. But it's a schlep, and sometimes it's a question of, I actually avoid taking a short ride because it's such a mission to put it all on all that gear. But now that I started to understand the whole thing of living in the present, I see that as part of my experience. Tying my shoes, putting my jacket on, my neck brace, etc. And I realized that it's not only about turning the throttle. Turning the throttle, which is the exhilarating part of it, only part of the experience. So I understand now that kitting up and kitting down makes me, and then appreciating that as well, makes me a pilgrim as opposed to a tourist. Mother Teresa said, be happy in the moment, that's enough. Each moment is all we need, not more. If you do the maths, and you typically are a person that don't focus on living in the present, but you're thinking of the past or the future all the time. You might think you're going to get to the age of 80 one day, but you're not. Because actually, you're going to live to the age of 60, because those are the only truly moments that you've experienced in life, because you weren't present in a quarter of your life. Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, said, if you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you are anxious, you're living in the future. But if you are at peace, you're living in the here and the now, in the present. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously where you and I need to intentionally focus on living more. It is late in our session, but I'm going to admit 2 more people. Apologies for that. We are not so many today, so I have admitted them. And just carrying on with the presentation, I want to get living the past out of the way. I want to put it in the past, so to speak. C.S. Lewis said, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and you can change the ending. Serious food for thought. We need to let go of the past. It's the past. We can't influence or change it in any manner. And maybe of letting go of the past involves you forgiving yourself for stuff that you've done. And in doing so, wiping the slate clean. To start over again. To start today. And maybe part of that is a question of when people come to you to ask for forgiveness, you give them that forgiveness. Or maybe you need to go to somebody else and say, I'm sorry. Can we make up? Can we shake hands and move on in life? You see, this is what people don't understand. If you don't make peace with somebody while they are alive, then you never have the opportunity to do it. And guess what? Who's going to sit with the burden and the regret? You and I, if we don't make peace. But if somebody's passed on, we can't change that. And getting back to C.S. Lewis's quote, all we can do is to forgive that person. Because if we don't, it's a ball and chain, and it takes us to a dark place where we Don't necessarily want to be. A place where there's no value add to our lives. The APA, the American Psychological Association, defines anxiety as an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. And I deliberately am underlying worried thoughts, because if we worry about the future, we typically have anxiety, and we worry what might happen, what might not happen. Recently, I read this blog on www.nib.com. Tim Sharp wrote it, How to Stop Worrying About the Future. And for the rest of our presentation and my presentation to you, I'm going to get into a little bit of this. Acknowledge your worries. You know what they are. You know you best. Acknowledge them, because that's the first place to start, or that's the place to start before you can act and do the rest to address them. Practice relaxation techniques. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more as well. Focus on living in the present. And then finally, make more time, I want to say, to reflect on your worries, which is something we'll get to at the end. So, before I get to correlation, when you find yourself living in the past or getting anxious about living in the future, ask yourself, what kind of stories am I telling myself? Is it the truth, or is it just my perception and my version of the truth, which is not necessarily the real truth? There's definitely, in my mind, I'm not a trained psychologist, but I can tell you from experience, there is absolutely what I find a correlation between our stress levels and our anxiety, our ability to live in the present moment. You would agree that when we are stressed, then it's so easy to get anxious about the future. How do you deal with your stress? How do I deal with my stress? I can share with you, and you might want to ask yourself the same question. Well, I do rolling fortnight planning. Every single day, a couple of times a day, I look at my annual calendar, and 2-3 weeks ahead, I look at what's coming up. And by planning, I not only take away the stress of what the future might hold, but I also find, and there's research around this, that your subconscious mind then find pathways to find solutions and make sure that you are successful in those things that you have planned. So that works for me in terms of getting rid of the anxiety. Something else, take regular breaks. Last month, as a family, we went to Swakopmund over Easter. This month, my sister, who's also on the call, she's visiting us, and to me, that's like a break, like a proper amazing break. Next month, Marley is turning 50, and we're going away to Franschhoek. And the month after that, I'll probably visit my folks in Nelstrom, in Morimoli. And it doesn't need to cost money. When I go to my parents, it's as simple as I take a couple of bottles of red wine, cost me fuel, and mom makes the greatest oxtail or leg of lamb, and it's just a break. It's part of getting rid of stress. assisting me to be less anxious about the future. Charging my life batteries. I ride motorcycles. I spend time in the African bush. I swim. Those are all things that reduces my stress levels and revitalizes my soul and my body and charges my life batteries. And what are those activities to you? And I want to urge you and ask you to do those more as part of being able to live in the now as well, and getting less anxious. And there's a number of tools you can use to live in the present moment more. And especially the guys, gents, we sometimes need to get out of our comfort zone. And some of these things you might say to me, Hekkie, but what? You want me to do what? Well, if you haven't tried it, don't knock it. But these things are tried and tested tools, techniques that can assist you to be more in the present. Practicing mindfulness. I use mindfulness and how I apply it is, where in the past, if a taxi pulled up in front of me and blocked me from getting to that urgent appointment, I would be mad for an hour after that, thinking back of that moment. Now I see that emotion arriving, I acknowledge it, and I say to it, cheers, off you go. Use it, mindfulness, to center myself. And in a heartbeat, in 30 seconds or 15 seconds, it's gone, it's over, I forget about it, and I focus on the next thing I need to do. Breathing. Simple technique where you can sit behind your office desk and you can just do 4-stage breathing. Nobody will even know about it. Calms you down, especially if you get anxious. Takes your mind off whatever you were worried about. Meditation. I don't meditate. Both my sons do. They find value out of it. Now, fair enough, you can't sit on your desk at work and meditate. But it's maybe something you want to do before work or after work that might assist you in being more in the present and assist you also in getting rid of the anxiety. You might want to try other things. Yoga, Pilates. But be brave. Try something new that can assist you in living in the present more. And reflect more. Self-reflection, according to the Oxford Online Dictionary, is serious thought about one's character and actions. Why do we want to reflect more? Well, it's simple. I find it so useful because it gives me new perspectives. And it just generally gives me a perspective in life. I do leadership coaching as part of my profession, and one of the overriding trends that I experience is that people don't get enough of that treadmill, that proverbial hamster wheel, to reflect on life. Because if you also reflect, and part of your reflection, you focus on rather what do I have, as opposed to worrying about what I should maybe have in the future. And as part of reflection, looking back in the rearview mirror of life more and saying to yourself, I could have, should have, would have, as opposed to saying that, you're saying to yourself, what I have. And this is what I have done. An acknowledgement of your own achievements in life, and more celebrate your successes and say to yourself, you know what, I could have done better, fair enough, but I did well. Tap yourself on the shoulder, on the back. And ask yourself the question, upon reflection, what is stopping me from living in the present moment? What is stopping you from living in the present moment? And address those things actively. Remember, page 1 of my book, the topic is take charge, because you are in charge. You can make it happen. So my dilemma after school was that I went to university. For 2 years, I was not supporting that brand. But I was supporting that brand. See, one of the things I got wrong was I didn't listen to my dad. Dad always told me, since I was little, when you work hard, and if you play hard. Don't mix these two though. And I didn't understand that when I live in the moment and I'm busy studying, I should be focusing on studying. And when I do play, I should be focusing on playing and not worrying about studying. I'm going to share with you two of my personal experiences, two other experiences. The first one is I recently found myself a couple of times, as far as modeling my routine is concerned, before I carry on, she goes and takes a shower, I make the bed, and then I shower. So I recently found myself especially because I've got a lot on my plate currently, that when I make the bed, I worry about the things I need to do today. And will I get a chance, and will I be able to complete it all successfully? When I get in the shower, I keep on worrying. And you know what? When I eventually get downstairs to make us breakfast, I'm exhausted. I'm tapped. My energy is drained from me, and that's even before the workday starts. Second thing I want to share with you is that while I was lying on the beach December of holidays, I told myself what can be different and what can be better different in 2023. And I came up with this. One of the things that I'm focusing intentionally on this year is to stop worrying about the things I cannot change in that moment. Food for thought. And the most powerful tool that I think we can use to get ourselves to focus in the present moment and appreciate the now and the here is self-talk. And going back to my 2 examples, what I do now is when I get up and I switch off my alarm clock, and I want to go to thinking of work and stressing and getting anxious about what I need to do today, I say to myself, Hekkie, make the bed, or make the bed, feel the wind against my face. When I go into the shower and I want to go back there, I say, and I appreciate the warm water on my skin. And when I get to my office at 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier, I'm refreshed, I'm charged, and I look forward to today. Let me get to the second example. If I worry about the things that I cannot change in that moment, trying to fall asleep, worrying about the next day or the next week, I tell myself, focus on the now. And if I really can't do that, rather get up, go to my study and switch on my computer, even though it might be late, and do something about my worries. But stop worrying about the things that you cannot change in that moment. It's a waste of energy. I love this quote. Look at the silhouette of the lion. Self-talk is the most powerful form of communication because it either empowers you or it defeats you. I want to invite you to use self-talk specifically as a very powerful tool whenever you find yourself unnecessarily thinking about the past or the future, getting anxious about the future. Final thought. When thinking about life, remember this: no amount of guilt can change the past, and no amount of anxiety can change the future. So I wish you all the best in not letting your future, or your past for that matter, be the thief of your present. And if these kind of topics interest you, and you haven't bought a book of mine yet, I've published a book on self-leadership, covering a lot of what I'm sharing with you in these webinars. Please join us and register on our website for the upcoming webinars, Choosing to be Positive in a Volatile World, end of June, end of July, Improving Self-Confidence and Stepping Out of Your Comfort Zone, and then August, Learning and Living Good Habits. But please forward me suggested topics, and we can always slot those in from September onwards. Ladies and gents, that's the end. Thank you for lending me your ears. I'm going to exit presentation mode now and ask you if there's any questions that you might have, comments. Criticism. I always welcome criticism. So the point is that's part of my personal journey. 15 years ago, I didn't like it, but now I appreciate that because I understand that I'm grown up in that sense, that I understand that criticism, assuming that it's accurate, and feedback that I might perceive as negative, assuming that it's accurate, it's the school books that I learn from and that I can use as a basis to improve. Any questions? We have 2 minutes left. Is everybody still there? Let me just make sure we've got connectivity. I'm getting a thumbs up. Yeah, well, go for it. You've got your hand up.
Hi, Hekkie. Yeah, I don't have questions. I just got like 2 things that I thought about during the session.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a firm believer in what is written in the Bible.
Yeah.
And there's a very specific verse that refers to forgiveness, and it says 70 times 7.
Yes.
And if you make the math, that's 490. And it always tickled me, why so much? Because and later I thought, but maybe it's because I don't have time to think 490 times about the thing that is irritating me about another person or what they did or didn't do to me.
Yeah.
So I think the 490 basically covers that. And there's a lot of freedom if you do that.
Yeah.
And especially at times when a person needs to be forgiven and you just do it. You're not going to get to 490. I'm very sure about that.
Yeah.
And the second thing
Absolutely,
is for me, the presence, I mean, to be present is exactly what it is. It's a present. It's a gift.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to receive it. And then I've got a very small criticism.
Yeah.
I would have loved that you send us all each one of those remotes that you showed in the beginning of the session. I can use it in traffic and in meetings.
And in load shedding, Gewald.
And in load shedding. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Much appreciated. Yeah. I want to add quickly, Leo Buscalia was one of my all-time favorites. I listened to his Ford Motor Company sales team talk again early in the week for the first time in many decades. And at some point, you made me think of it now, Ewald. He said, don't let God come back to earth and ask you, I've given you so much, but why did you achieve so little? And in that, we should, if we look at that and we think of the past, we should also forgive ourselves. And I think we don't often do that enough. And be less hard on ourselves. The Leo Buscalia quote is a very hard one and a very harsh one. But I think just all around forgiveness, we can do more of, to agree to you, Ewald, absolutely. But also forgive ourselves and move on as much as we possibly can and focus on the future and what that might hold and try and influence that in a positive manner. Right. Any final comments? Ewald, thanks for that. Much appreciated. I really do. It's very lonesome as a facilitator or presenter to stand up here and nobody comments at the end. So I really do appreciate it and all valid comments. Thank you. Ladies and gents, thanks once again for lending me your ears. I wish you all the best and may you have a super weekend. Look after yourselves, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at our next Free Friday lunch webinar. Keep well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.